I have the most wonderful floor manager in the world, Nicky Tallow. You know, he has an advanced sense of humor. He and Jimmy Seach, and well, Michael Douglas was here for quite a long time with us. He went to Hollywood and became Michael Keaton. And those three on the set, we just had a ball. They were always playing jokes on me. One time they put shoes that were so small for me I couldn't, at the end of the program, I couldn't get my feet in them. No, that's not true. They weren't small shoes. They were my shoes, but they had put paper at the toe. And I kept putting them in, singing the last song, you know, such a good feeling to know you're alive, trying to put that. But that was just for the rehearsal. And one time, you know, Picture Picture on our set, Michael was always behind there. And there's that little thing that I slide over and put in the videotape for Picture Picture. Well, one day in rehearsal, I slid this thing open and I heard this voice say, "I'm ready to hear your confession, son." That was Michael.
The first picture ever, television picture, ever transmitted live from Earth to outer space and back to Earth via the first Telstar. I lit that. The Telstar had been put into orbit, and it was to achieve this never before achieved feat of receiving a signal and transmitting it back. When it did that, it opened what we know today as satellite communication. And the picture was of the American flag blowing in the wind against the radome, which has housed a 16-story bubble that housed the telescope, the radio telescope, that transmitted the signal on a laser beam. And there was no flag. The flag was supposed to be blowing, but there was no wind. So I put a fan on it. and there was no light on it because it was in the shadow of a building, so I put lights on it. That became the first picture with the Star Spangled Banner track behind it, ever transmitted live out and back. Then there were other pictures of Senator Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, and other people got in on the act. But the first picture ever in history of mankind was that one. And I lit it. Thank you very much. Lighting was nothing. The experience was everything.
On Saturday, before dress rehearsal, during our crew's meal break, the music guest sound checks their 2 songs. So in sound check, she did something where she felt like she popped something in her throat. And then in dress rehearsal, she sang the first song, and in the middle of the first song, it like popped again, and she kind of like lost. So the second song, she lip synced because she literally couldn't sing it. And the meeting between Dress and Air, someone came up to me and said, "So this is the deal. We can give her a cortisone shot in her throat and see if that works, or we can have her lip sync." And I was like, you know, it's not like she's Christina Aguilera that, you know, you're going to put a cortisone shot in her throat and she's going to be singing, you know, she's a pop singer, you know. So I was like, I don't really, does she want a shot in her throat? Because I would not want to do that. So they decided that she would just lip sync for air, and they'd try to, take the dress vocal from the first performance and try to make it for the reruns. And the drummer had never, because she had been singing live, the drummer had never triggered both tracks. So the first song, he triggered it, it was fine, and he had never done where he triggered for the second song, and he triggered the first song again by accident. I was trying to get out of it as quickly as I could, and Lauren was thinking that maybe they could salvage it. And when she left the stage, I'm like, she left the stage. And he's like, is she coming back? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, we can go to break now. Because I was trying to go to break like right away to try to salvage it and maybe come back and do the song. But it was crazy.
You got big dreams. You want fame. Well, fame costs. And right here is where you start paying in sweat.
You nailed it.
Well, I've never not been able to say it. I mean, I'll be in the grocery store and somebody say, oh, could you say the line? I'll be in Italy somewhere. Miss Grant, say it to us, please. They love it. It's great.
They call it the character's name, okay.
That's right, Miss Grant.
Here's what happened. I was doing rehearsing. So I said to whomever it was, hey, that's Dynamite. And then we went on with the scene. John Rich was our director. John Rich says, I love that Dynamite thing. I go, what about it? He says, you got to do that, man. That's what we need. I said, Dynamite? He says, yeah. And he went out in the middle of the room and he showed me how to do it. He says, Dynamite. He says, you got to put the teeth out there and put the whole thing. I go, really? He says, yeah, we'll just do it, you take a random bite, something will happen, and Dynamite. He says, I don't want like Dynamite. I want out there, smiling, teeth, gold, eyes, everything. I go, John, come on. People will never be that stupid where they'll buy it. He says, yes, they will.
It would be 1953. In those days, there was no comedy club or all these improv, all these places that you have out in Hollywood Boulevard now. There was no chance for beginners. But somehow a writer named Rick Vollards picked me up and started to write material for the team. So he wrote for Groucho Marx and some of the other comedians. And they talked to the Groucho Marx show, why don't you have this Chinese kid that come on your show? That was You Bet Your Life. Groucho was obviously the host. So I did You Bet Your Life, that says Groucho Marx. Yes. And now it's a $64,000 course, that type of thing. That was the beginning, the very, very beginning of my career in Hollywood. Because I had after the show, they told me I had the second largest fan mail of all the contestants. And so that resulted in a Hollywood or a San Francisco nightclub called Forbidden City, who gave me an offer to come up and do my impersonation act. But then I just jumped head and shoulder into show business, and practice engineering on the side.
pretty soon I just had to make up my mind to quit engineering, which I never regretted.